The rumors have started with little whispers, while others were just straight up inaccurate information, as players are asking for things they felt should be an absolute necessity within Helldivers 2, and we've even got some developer responses as well, so stick around as I break it all down. If you want to help support the channel, you know what to do. Please swipe right on mobile to hype the video, and let's get this thing going. I tend to receive a lot of feedback from the Helldivers community, coming from Discord, DMs, tweets, Reddit, I mean, you name it. And when you see 1, 2, 3 or more comments or questions, all kind of asking the same thing, you tend to remember that pattern. One such pattern is expressed here in this Helldivers Unfiltered Reddit post from Big Captain 5104. I kind of feel like Helldivers 2 is becoming a side project for the devs. Big Captain goes on to say, I've been diving since launch, and with the success and amount of money this game has brought and brings in, I'm growing increasingly confused as to why major updates are usually very short-lived. That's actually an excellent point. Siege of Cyberstan, barely over a week old, same copy-paste city no matter the level. Cyborg faction is about 3 units, with 2 being more or less the same with different skins. No unique cutscenes outside of some flavor text shoved in the corner. Lots of visual glitches and oversights. DSS UI literally never shows what's actually being voted on, and for some reason people have to check the Discord. And he finishes up here with DSS didn't even visually show up in the skybox. Not to mention all the other bugs, glitches, and missing aspects which have never been resolved. Terminal opposite side of the armory still doesn't function 2 years after launch. Continuing on here, because there is more, he goes on to say, arguably, the biggest red flag was when the Piles said he was stepping down from the CEO position to focus more on Arrowhead's next big project, which wouldn't be Helldivers related. And at this point, I'm beginning to think most of the studio's bandwidth is being put into that project while Helldivers acts as a temporary money conduit, aka just to push out minimal effort stuff, trusting the community will eat it up, while any shortcomings for Helldivers 2 get blamed on the engine and tech debt. And he finishes up with, I guess as a fan, it's just sad to see something that is, in my opinion, on the precipice of a generational level of gaming greatness be constantly held back for some reason. Alright, as you know, and in case you aren't familiar with me here on the channel, I cover it all within the Helldivers sphere. I cover the news, the updates, I give you my honest thoughts and impressions, along with the topics that I cover, which could be the good, the bad, and of course, the ugly. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm starting to hear this whisper get a little bit louder and a little bit louder from the far corners of the Helldiver fandom. That whisper is, Arrowhead has moved on. Now, before I weigh in with my brutally honest thoughts and impressions on what was laid out here in this Reddit post, and by the way, I can always appreciate anyone's perspective laid out here in the Helldivers community, I'd like to first throw in some facts and recent posts just so we can get some accurate context as to this situation, and then I'll weigh in once it's done. So first off, we know that Helldivers 2 is Sony's fastest selling game of all time, which was announced during a Sony investor call, so that is fact. It's also been reported that HD2 has sold now over 20 million copies as of this report in late January 2026. And I grabbed this shot from Steam just a few hours ago, and you can see that Helldivers 2 is still holding on to the top 10 in Steam's top sellers charts, currently showing in 9th place. And again, FYI, this chart is based not on copies sold, but dollars generated. And now that I look over this chart, and this is just completely off topic, look at Resident Evil Requiem currently sitting at number 1. Marathon at 13th, and good old Space Marine 2, thanks to a massive 67% off sale, is back in the top 15. And oh, look at that, Snail Games must be feeling the pressure from their shareholders to make some money, because there's Ark Survival Ascended just outside the top 10 with a whopping 75% off sale, currently selling the entire base game for just $11.24 USD. Anyways, back on topic, and when you combine the Sony's fastest selling game of all time, reportedly over 20 million copies sold, and the fact that I just showed you how despite not having a brand new war bond on sale, the regular price Helldivers 2 selling for $39.99 USD is still charting in the top 10 for Steam, the point is, that's a lot of revenue generated. How much exactly? Well, according to multiple sources, that amounts to over 700 million in revenue. Damn! In fact, Arrowhead and Helldivers 2 made such a splash that Chinese gaming giant Tencent swooped in July of 2024 and dropped 83 million in cash to purchase a 15.75% stake of Arrowhead, which at the time, it was said the studio in its totality was said to have been valued at $532 million. The revenue, the success, the growth of the dev team has led to Arrowhead now moving headquarters to an even larger facility in Stockholm, now sharing an office building with the likes of Epidemic Sound and the studio behind the Battlefield franchise, EA Dice. Okay, context over, and as you can see from everything I just laid out there, Helldivers shot off like a rocket in terms of both success and dollars generated. But of course, it's also been out for 2 years now, and it's time for me to weigh in on what was laid out here in this Reddit post. And I'm also asking you to leave a comment with your thoughts on this as well. So first off, the question of the pace of the studio and more so the studio's focus. Well, I think it speaks for itself. This dev team just kind of gets there when they get there, often taking much too long to address pressing issues. They've also admitted that for a very long time there, the full development of the game was not focused on fixing tech debt or lingering bugs, but instead, it was about creating and pushing live new content, which ended up backfiring on them somewhere around when Into the Untested dropped. The game just imploded under the crushing weight of neglected technical issues, and a large part of the player base crashed out in need of a much-needed break. But the notion that the studio has completely moved on, or essentially tabled Helldivers 2. I mean, it's an interesting one for sure, and I do try to keep an open mind to take in all angles and potential outcomes and perspectives. Could this be true? Could Arrowhead have already moved over to their next project and left a small team maining Helldivers 2 in an attempt to keep it afloat? I mean, technically anything is possible, right? But I tend to think it's way too early to see that happening. You see, we just came off of 2 largely successful war bonds back-to-back in Redacted Regiment and Siege Breakers. So that says to me the game is still printing money. The Machinery of Oppression update was here. Of course, it's now paused while the board regroup. And despite all of its technical and design flaws, and there were a lot of them, it did see players return in huge numbers to try to help the cause against Cyberstan. Even tonight, as of the recording of this video, and with Cyberstan content on pause, Helldivers 2 was sitting in 14th place on the Steam DB charts with over 57,000 divers online for PC alone. Again, all that said, it shows the game made serious money when it launched, but has also shown staying power to keep making money, which makes me think it is still under the management of the bulk of the Arrowhead dev team. Although, again, based on their speed to fix issues and their slow pivots, that doesn't always show. Now, do I think Pilstead has a crew already assembled and conceptualizing whatever Arrowhead's next game is going to be? 100%. But that's Game Studio 101. They work for years and years, they launch their game, they support the game, and they also immediately begin working on the next thing. That could be DLC, it could be live service events, and it could be Helldivers 3, even though Johan has already said that their next project won't be HD3, so that's not a confirmation there. Don't take that as gospel. That's just me giving an example. I can totally relate to the post outlining the issues that seem to persist for far too long, and the new issues that pop up whenever a new patch or update arrives, but Arrowhead moving on and already diverting all their efforts and all that money to their next project, at least to me, it just rings as too early for that one to be taking place. However, I did want to swing back around to the subject of Helldivers and the game itself and how it's badly in need of mechanics and quality of life and systems that the player base has been screaming for what seems like forever. As FandomWire laid out earlier today in this article, quote, even after 2 years, Helldivers 2 still lacks this one basic feature that limits player creativity. Despite being out for a while, like I said, 2 years now, Helldivers 2 still lacks features such as armor recolors and weapon charms, making fans miss out on customization. Players have long been asking for an armor reshade system, with daily posts hitting Reddit like this one, and with over 1,400 upvotes on this post alone, it's still a highly requested mechanic that doesn't seem to ever arrive. Now, besides a reshade system, we've also seen cries from the fandom to unlock the armor sets and allow players to customize passives to their personal favorite armors, which I think would be sick. I mean, we all have armor sets we maybe don't think look all that good, but they have good passives. But having the ability to tailor the sets to our personal preferences, I think would be incredible. Player agency is an intoxicating game system, adding in things like customization options like weapon charms, badges, or insignias for clans or campaigns completed, or even signifying milestones achieved would definitely drive up player interest. And of course, we all need expanded and full weapon customization. I mean, these are all still highly requested features now in February 2026. Weapon customization was added to the game back in May 2025, and it's clear that feature was not complete at launch. Certain weapons are strictly limited to optics, while others, like those in the legendary Killzone and ODST warbonds, are excluded from any modifications. Even the bank of monitors right now behind our armory terminals are just dead, and it's been suggested to include a comprehensive compendium, a point that Johan has agreed is needed in the game, but so far, much of this has never, none of this has really ever materialized. Or in the case of the weapon customization, it appears to only be partly finished and excludes secondary and support weapons. Okay, switching our focus here, but mostly sticking to this same topic, this lack of information and in-game resources like what I just mentioned, a compendium, has led to speculation within the Helldivers Discords and player base, like this discussion I found just today in the official HD2 Discord when members started asking questions about how exactly planet liberation works. I assume based off of our failed attempt to liberate Cyberstan that always seemed to net us 0.0% on the liberation bars. This member said, AH has given conflicting information on liberation lately. That's probably what it is, but we don't know for sure. To which another member actually responded, the wiki is based on information we got a while ago from Joel through Mitchimus. Pilestead has said something different since, but we don't know for sure. They go on to say, I tried to ask Baskinator if we can get an up-to-date answer, but no dice. This is me just speaking here. Arrowhead, this would be a great topic for an upcoming blog post. Break it all down for the community, cut through all the confusion and noise, and if you could include it in the ship's database for easy reference, that would be a huge W. Staying in line with this, and speaking of in-game and not having the necessary tools at our fingertips, another member asked if there was a place to be able to communicate with the general Helldivers populace, to align and aid us in our efforts to coordinate a planet to attack or even a strategy to try to adhere to. Because keep in mind, the vast majority of Helldivers are not a part of the official Helldivers Discord. They don't read through Reddit or comb through X. This actually earned a response from Mitchimus, essentially saying that the studio had no plans to implement that type of system at this stage in the game's life, but he hoped we could get it up and running down the line. Okay, so no shade to Mitch, but when is down the line? Because it's been 2 years now. We need this ASAP, especially if Joel can just move his forces at a moment's notice, constantly taking advantage of our poor communication skills. And the final bit I wanted to bring to light has to do with some rumors within the Helldivers community about the grenade launcher and how it interacts with the supply pack. Now, I'm not going to spend too long on this subject, but the TLDR is that someone took it upon themselves to amend the Helldivers wiki to point out an undocumented change to the grenade launcher, stating that the supply pack now only resupplies you with 2 mags instead of 3. This, of course, got out and started spreading like wildfire through the fandom, resulting in a post from JuniBugged, one of the mods for the Helldivers wiki, saying that the statement that the GL in the supply pack had been nerfed was inaccurate, and the one less magazine was actually due to the post-Cyberstan campaign shortages, where we Helldivers would of course receive less ammo, less stems, and 1 less reinforcement. The wiki, of course, took down the incorrect changelog, and I did just test it out before this recording, and I can confirm that based on the new in-game dispatches that ammo shortage has ended. Running the grenade launcher dry and resupplying from your supply pack does now indeed give you back 3 mags, not 2. So if you see someone still passing along that inaccurate info, try to set them straight. And if they don't believe you, tell them to watch my video showing the +3 magazines when I resupply from the supply pack. So we've reached the point in this one where I now turn to you for your valuable feedback. Do you think Arrowhead has moved on to their new project, essentially leaving a skeleton crew to maintain Helldivers 2? What sort of customization options are you dying to see in the game? And what could Arrowhead do to quickly bring us a bestiary or reference so we could better understand the hidden mechanics within Helldivers 2? Any and all of that is on the table for tonight's discussion, so don't be shy. Drop a comment, as I'm always interested in your viewpoints and feedback. In case you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe and ring the notifications bell to receive my future upload alerts. If you're on mobile, please swipe right to hype the video. And before we go, I'd like to send out a massive shout out to my channel supporters who show up day in and day out to support me, to support my content and the channel. Until the next one, this is LtBuzzLitebeer signing off.